And I'm sorry about the craziness last week. It's the only time all year that I've had an issue like that where I had to reschedule a guest, and it happened to you. You were the lucky guy. So,
Oh boy, here we go.
we apologize for that, but we're glad that you were able to reschedule with us. Um, I don't know if you know a lot about what we do on this channel, but we are about uniting America. We're talking to people and saying we don't care who you are or where you came from or what your political affiliation or what little group you've been separated off into, that we want you to come together. If you love your country and you recognize something's wrong, we want to bring America together and unite them behind the common good of getting our country back on a positive path. So we talk a lot about things like the Constitution, freedom, putting God back in our country. Um, and I know Kathy told me that you actually are a common law grand jury judge. So I'm going to pick your brain about that a little bit tonight at some point if we can.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's not quite accurate. I'm a I'm a supporter of the common law uh, court process.
okay,
I've been a judge on a citizens tribunal of conscience,
okay,
and I've been supporting all of the trial processes of the International Common Law Court of Justice
okay,
in Brussels.
right.
Yeah,
All right, so we'll probably want to get you to talk a little bit about that
yeah,
because
sure.
people are interested in that. A lot of the states now have passed similar types of laws, but people aren't availing themselves of it.
Sure.
They're still using the regular systems a lot. But I think one of the main things that Kathy was talking about when she scheduled you in is some things that you know about the Ebola virus. Um,
Right.
uh, and so I'm just going to kind of pitch it your direction a little bit here, and maybe for people that aren't familiar with you, maybe give a little bit of your background, and then kind of go into what the main topics are that you'd like to talk to us about tonight.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Well, I have a long background as what I would call a public interest advocate, and that is an advocate or who represents the public interest, which is not generally not generally represented as a client in in either legal proceedings or otherwise. And I've operated as a journalist. I've operated as a lawyer. I go way back. I was one of the lawyers in the 1969 Panther 21 trial, where 21 Black Panthers were put on trial for. It was a frame up by the FBI for a plot of allegedly conspiring to blow up the Statue of Liberty in New York, and after a very lengthy trial, they were acquitted after just a few hours
Wow.
of deliberations by the jury. And the purpose of that at that time was that the Black Panthers were really more bringing organization and health and welfare to the Black community. And so they were infiltrated. And I just got a report, for example, that said that the Department of Homeland Security had infiltrated the Black Panthers at Ferguson, Missouri.
That would not surprise me.
And now they are the ones that are agitating the riots, and that the strategy there is to try and agitate so as to provide a pretext for the imposition of martial law.
Right.
And that's, that may have been what the shooting's all about, that's what all these police provocations are
Right.
all about. So this is sort of an area that I have been active in for more than 40 years. And I've been active in a number of other areas in the, I would call it the multi-dimensional paradigm. That's a whole other area. And so here I am.
There you are. I agree on there's been a lot of talk about what's going on in Ferguson, that it being, a testing of how people are going to react. And just like in Boston, where they sent in the militarized, police units dragging people out by the hair into the streets, and they did that search. So I've certainly seen some of that talk going around here, and I think it's very possible you could be right, and that they're testing, how strongly that the American people would react to things like a shooting, like that. So I agree with you. It's very possible that these things are tests, to see what's going to happen. So at any rate, the thing with Ebola, I know that we've had it on. We've talked about it a lot over the last couple of weeks. What do you know about that? What do you think is going on with
Yeah. Let me just, if I could, just to kind of give an overview. We have come to kind of use a basic formula to describe this, and that is Plan A is martial law, and Plan B is Ebola.
Right.
And that's the basic plan that the Matrix, the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Zionist world plan, there's all kinds of overlays of plans trying to play out some kind of end game on the planet to bring down the population from 7+ billion to 500 million if you look at the Georgia Guidestones.
Right.
Yeah. And to somehow make this some kind of an elite theme park, where they can ride their horses and the surfs,
And I grew up not too far from Elberton, Georgia, so I knew about those Guidestones, coming along. So
yeah. So whether it be by Ebola or depleted uranium, or Fukushima radiation, or GMOs, or chemtrails, or a combination of all of these methods of exterminating what they consider to be a pest, namely the common man,
the useless eaters,
the salt of the earth, which we consider ourselves, first of all, to be divine human souls, sovereign beings, and free men and women and children, and so this elite, which has a lot of fantasies in their head of being entitled because they are the descendants from the Anunnaki occupation. In other words, all the divine rights of kings come down. And if you trace it back, one of my areas of expertise is what I call exopolitics. People can go to my book, Exopolitics. And if you trace it back, all the, quote, divine rights of kings antecede back from the Egyptian pharaohs, and they go back to a specific race of extraterrestrials that we call the Anunnaki that landed here about 280,000 years ago in South Africa. In fact, I went to that landing place, and their object was to get a hold of our gold, which they did because they needed that gold for their planet. And basically nothing has changed since then. They came here to get our gold and to dumb down the natives, which was us, which they did,
Right.
and they established themselves as the rulers, and with crowns and all of that. And if you look at all the current rulers, all the kings and queens and governments, they all are still trying to make themselves look like the Anunnaki ETs, the robes and all of that.
Right.
And nothing has changed in 280,000 years. I mean, basically, they're hoarding all the gold and they're dumbing us down. And they're getting rid of us. And now they, according to their texts and the input that they get from their satanic sacrifices and their worshiping of dark satanic entities, one of our tribunals, uh, two direct action units acting under authority of warrants from one of our tribunals, the ITCCS, Friday night, August 15th, which was the night of the full new moon, which is where they perform child sacrifices to
Right.
their satanic entities. We had two locations under observation. One was in Montreal, and the other was in Ireland. And in the Montreal, we were able to intercept at a private residence, intercept members of the satanic sacrifice prior to that they were doing. We were able to, our people were able to go down there to a location below the basement that had two detention cells, one for each of the children, with
Yeah.
shackles, that had an altar with blood on it, so they had blood there previously. Two of the members were detained. We ascertained that the two children were being held at McGill University, which had been involved with CIA mind control experiments back in the 50s. And they then confessed that two of the participants were high executives with Cargill Corporation out of Minnesota and Sinclair Oil out of Idaho. Now, Cargill Corporation, all of this, you can go to our website, ecologynews.com, look up the interview, look up the facts. Cargill Corporation is the largest, it's a privately owned corporation. It has the largest income of any privately owned corporation in North America, larger than Ford Motor Company, and is privately owned. Foodstuffs, agricultural, and one of their high executives is into satanic sacrifice, and we've learned since that satanic sacrifice takes place on or around the corporate campus of Cargill Corporation, and they have been known for using child labor, illegally using child labor for their agricultural products.
Right.
So what's this all about? Okay,
Right.
so this and there is a connection between these satanic circles and Ebola. In other words, we're on a satanic planet where the government is satanic. All the governments are satanic. We've discovered that the Vatican, which controls all the world governments through the secret treaty of Verona, they control the UK government, they control the US government. The Vatican and the Jesuits basically set up the US and designed Washington, D.C. And that's where, when you had the coronation of the Pope, you had all the US presidents go there. And that's why the Queen of England had to go there. And we discovered, and you can go to itccs.org, and you'll find out that, and through evidence and eyewitnesses, that each and every pope, all the prior popes that we know of for the last 70 years, Pope John Paul II, you know, the big white saintly Pope. The one before him, the one after him, Ratzinger, the current one, you know, the PR Pope. They all have to engage in a ninth circle initiation, which is that they have to commit ritual infanticide, kill a newborn infant, drink the infant's blood, eat its flesh. And this is all part of getting the empowerment to become pope, so that they take on this evil spirit, which is why they can go out there and then everybody's going to worship them, because they're walking out there with that satanic luciferic spirit behind them. And all the masses, the billions, are going to worship them because we're on the satanic planet. And you know, and all these wars are about Satan. And so that's what's going down on this planet right now, and that's what Ebola is about. Let me read you. I just want to read the titles of the articles that we've been publishing.
Yeah, my big worry with the Ebola stuff is that, you know, it just sounds like it's starting to get a little too much traction in Africa, and you know, my fear is that it's going to get out of hand pretty quick. You know,
it's a total false flag. Look, I'm just going to read you the titles of the articles, just so that the listeners and the viewers can see it.
All right.
Okay, these are articles that some I posted today, some have been up a long time. Ferguson shooting is directly related to Ebola. See, it's just scams that they're trying to run on the public.
Right.
It's not the Ebola virus that's dangerous. It's the vaccine.
Yeah.
How they kill them. The Spanish flu in 1918, it wasn't the Spanish flu that killed 50 million people. It was the vaccine and the aspirin supplied by the cabal that killed the 50 million people. And that was an intentional genocide. This is just like when Orkin Pest Control comes to kill all the critters. This is how they do it, through the vaccines. Okay, second one, a full cure for the Hughes Ebola panic. They have cures. Vitamin C cures Ebola. It's just the virus.
Right.
It's no big deal. Okay, an open letter to Vladimir Putin on Ebola. We say, you know, Mr. Putin, you're being false flagged to death. They're trying to draw you into all these false flags because MH17. We've done shows where we show that the Malaysian airline MH17, like the early one, 370, were all false flags. 370 was shot down by the U.S. Navy. And then for 30 days, they just played, where's Waldo? Where's the plane? And they just had the whole world.
Right. It was a huge distraction. You know, you know, they were making us not look, you know, obviously that's to keep us distracted so we're not paying attention to what's really going on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I haven't seen in a long time where all the major networks, 24 hours a day for like 3 weeks, did nothing but run that story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All their resources, all their reporters, all their, you know, equipment, you know, people stationed worldwide, reporters all over the world, and they covered that story 24 hours a day for 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Here, I'm going to go. Ebola and the bankers making money on taking you away. They've set it up, so they're going to make money on genociding 6.5 billion people. They're going to make money on each and every corpse.
So how are they doing that? Have they set up insurance on people, or is it just the actual, you know, the
insurance? That's what Obamacare is all about. They have codes in Obamacare for guillotining.
Right.
See?
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're going to collect on each and every guillotine. They're going to collect for each and every person taken to a FEMA camp because they've been diagnosed with Ebola. And there's no cure for Ebola. So they have to be quarantined. And they're going to make money on that.
Right.
Okay. For Ebola, they built drive-through gas chambers. In other words, they have automated it now. In other words, the Holocaust in World War II was just a test run. These are the Nazis reinvented. They came through Operation Paperclip
Yeah.
to America. They've actually been running America. Hitler was running America for a long time. All of these people have been running America for a long time. Hitler was alive and well and running America for a long time. And they built the gas chambers. George W. Bush and these guys built the guillotines. They built the gas chambers. George W. Bush signed the orders. Barack Obama's been signing the orders that are going to, throughput Americans, because America is the big targeted country, because they really want to get rid of these 285 million Americans that are like free spirits, right?
Right. Right.
Because everybody else is so obedient, right? Then the title of the next thing, Ebola, the vaccine from the Nazis. It just shows you the history of how the vaccine was developed, of who the WHO is, the World Health Organization. These are all Nazis. These are all organizations that are set up for extermination.
Right.
It's all like, it's all like this Dr. Strangelove, like it's all backwards. That's the world that we actually live in now.
Right.
And Barack Obama and George W. Bush and all these government people, they're just empowered to exterminate us. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, they're just empowered to exterminate us. That's about.
Well, it's obvious to anybody that's been following it for a long time that obviously all of these people, anybody's been following this for a number of years, that all of our political leaders are basically the same party. There's no difference between them, and they're all doing bad things, and it's definitely not anything that's good for the American people, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they've all been part of the same plans,
Sure.
Um,
And this has been known for a while, i.e., 20 years ago, Christopher Story documented it in a 750-page book called The New Underworld World Order. And you can download it for free at my website, exopolitics.com. And it's documented, the guillotines, everything. This is all standing by.
right.
You see, that's like Plan B. Plan A right now, which, with 2014, they're just kind of starting to rev it up. And they're trying to get a civil war going. They're trying to get mass riots going. And they have provocateurs and infiltrators in all these situations. And they're all DHS or, alphabet agencies, FBI, whatever. And they're just trying to get all these false flags going. And then to put in martial law. And then the Ebola is that it works hand in glove. And like the Boston Marathon false flag was a test case. It was a total false flag. It was totally phony. But just to see what happens when you shut down an American city on the basis of a completely falsified set of set of scenarios involving crisis actors. So you have the same crisis actors are involved now in places like Ferguson, who are out there agitating, trying to get martial law going, and they're just trying to they're just gaming to get martial law started, and then once that happens, you can begin to ramp up the Ebola. And once that starts happening, because what you've done is that you have pre-hyped the American population, you have a whole series of presidential direct executive orders that have been signed by Bush and signed by Obama that say essentially through presidential executive orders, if you don't take the vaccine, there's going to be a soldier standing there and he can shoot you on the spot, or they can put you in a train directly to a FEMA camp. And these trains have guillotines in them. And this is all documented.
I have seen pictures of those trains, by the way. And,
yeah.
We've all seen the RFPs that were out there about the guillotine. I mean,
yeah.
These things do exist. There were requisitions for them. And, so for anybody out there that doesn't believe some of those things are true, you can find the actual documents out there on the internet with the government requisition.
Yeah, and you can find the healthcare codes in Obamacare for the guillotines and for guillotining people. They're going to collect insurance on that guillotining.
Right.
That's going to be a medical procedure because they, for this public safety, they guillotine that person and dispose of their body in order to, keep the rest of the population. So this is like the Middle Ages. I mean, I'm even beginning to go back to wanting to go back to the plague. And I think that even back then, it was probably some kind of Vatican, plot by some kings and queens who released the plague virus, as sort of a depopulation thing. I mean, these are things that are done by the elites, have been done by the elites over time, and continue to be done, and it's highly technologized. And what's the defense that we have as citizens? The defense that we have as citizens is to make this public so they cannot get the critical mass of citizens who go into states of fear. They cannot get a credible critical mass to go into martial law because we are showing it for what it is. Now, I've got to tell you, I've been doing shows. I was on a show last night with Iranian international television from Tehran. And I've done 2 shows from Tehran already. And they are showing this. They are allowing this fraud in Ferguson, Missouri to be shown in a way that the mainstream media here is satanic, and it's owned by the Satanists who are in power, and they are rigged, and they're part of it. CNN, they're implementers of the false flags.
Right.
Yeah. So it's through programs like this, through the alternative media, that we get the word out and put out the facts so that people then begin to say, oh, let me look at the facts. And I'm going to post this with all of the links. In fact, what I'm going to do is right now is just post all of the links that the links to all the articles that I just mentioned on the air.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put them in your Skype chat,
All
and
right.
if you want to post them wherever.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've got somebody who can post them over to our social stream. You know, we have a chat thing that goes out to Facebook and Twitter, and people can chat in it during the show.
Yeah,
So we'll just we'll have somebody post
yeah.
that right across.
This shows exactly how, and this is in depth. This shows how the Ferguson false flag is being set up, and it's related to the Ebola martial law false flag. Because, see, these are slow motion false flags.
Right.
And we're just showing how it's being done so that people can, be made aware and they can't get to a critical mass.
All right, and these are all the ones you just posted here.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them here.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to copy that over to somebody that can post them. Let me do that. And that way anybody who wants to get a little additional information there on some of this stuff, they can do it. Let's see. I'm looking, there's who I'm looking for right there. Please repost. There it is. All right, so she's got all those, and she can send it along. All right. Okay, so we passed those along, and we have shared that, and I'm sure that will that will show up here shortly. So anyway, where do you think they're going with this Ebola thing? I mean, you think
Well,
that's become the main plan, or is it still just a backup plan? Or
yeah, it's plan A is martial law, plan B is Ebola. Their basic plan is the Georgia Guidestones, and that is to bring down the global population to 500 to 500 million. Now, they are like a rogue faction, but they are the bloodline bankers. They are the satanic bloodline monarchies. In other words, the UK monarchy, the Dutch monarchy. These are the people that have been in power. The UK monarchy controls or owns 1/5 of the surface area of the planet. They're heads of state of a large number of Commonwealth countries. Some of those countries are continent size. Australia is a continent. Canada, where I'm speaking from, Canada is where the UK monarchy is the head of state here. Canada is the second largest landmass in the world after Russia. So the UK monarchy is the head of state of all of these countries.
right.
And when you add it up, that's a huge amount. And the mineral wealth alone in those countries. In Canada, they own a huge amount of the gold in the world, huge amount of the uranium in the world, huge amount of petroleum in the world. I mean, it's just huge. So, and they have been at it with black magic because they use they are satanic systems. And they've been using black magic for thousands of years. I mean, it just comes down, all of their previous successors, they have held sway over the common person using occult magic in one form or the other for thousands of years. And that's basically what they still use now. And they have tremendous tools like HARP, which they use for mind control with their black magic, and they're just a lot more destructive. They'll pull off a Fukushima nuclear false flag, to spread radiation, and they'll take that radiation and they'll ferry it in rain clouds over the Pacific, and they'll rain it down on North America, just
Right.
to rain out North America, to weaken people's DNA, to weaken the plants, to try and shorten people's lifespans.
Well, you know,
And
last year I had a there was a period of time where all the tops of the trees died, you know, in the area around here,
yeah,
and you know that it had to be, you know, fallout from Fukushima. I'd never seen anything like that in my entire life. Um, you know, just the leaves just shriveled up, and I mean, it was very, very odd. And it happened to everything: trees, bushes, you know, grass, flowers, all of it got hit by it. But the oddest thing about it was the top of the treetops is what turned brown, you know.
yeah,
So you knew that something had come from the atmosphere, you know, to, you know, Fukushima, they're not even being truthful with us about what's going on in the Pacific Ocean, you
no,
know.
no, no.
Um, we have a big dead expanse of ocean there. You know, there was an article recently from somebody who frequently goes between Japan and the U.S., and he said this last crossing, there was just nothing. It was just dead. They said they saw one whale that was, you know, deformed. But all the usual sea life that they would see when you cross the Pacific is gone. Um, and this is continuing to accelerate, you know, because that's continued to melt down. And now it's into the groundwater. Um,
Yeah, so this is genocide, and
yeah,
this is ecocide. And we have had courts that have viewed this evidence and have found it. For example, the Tokyo International Tribunal for War Crimes in Afghanistan that examined the evidence of radiation due to the depleted uranium used in Afghanistan and its effects as the radiation there got into the atmosphere with the trade winds and the westerlies and in the monsoons. And just there, it was genocide, and um, it was ecocide. It just kills everything.
no,
Um, uh, all of the epidemics of diabetes, the epidemics of mental illness that the U.S. has, where the statistics show that 25% of the U.S. has a form of mental illness, which is much higher than other countries that have sometimes as low as 3 and 4%, is due to radiation. The U.S. population has been irradiated
no,
by the Illuminati. And it's a spiritual battle because the U.S. population is the population that broke away from the reptilian empire of the UK crown. Even though the elite of the U.S. Still covertly belong to the UK crown, and all the presidents, recent presidents, have been agents of the British crown. Covertly. They really served the Illuminati, you know, Bush, Clinton, all those people, and not the American people. So that's, you know, a lot of what's going now. But the issue now is that the Illuminati are moving into their endgame. So we, the people of Earth, the united souls of Earth, just to get it down to basics, have really got to come together in an aware state to understand how we're going to resist this attempted extermination. And so far, the formula that I've come with is we resist it first with our soul power. That is, we bring spiritual power awareness, and we just make it public, and we just come at it. And when there's shills and everything come in, we expose the shills, we push them out, and we operate with the power of the common law, natural law, social law, with our own courts, with our own laws. Where they're white hats, we work with the white hats. You know. Anyway.
Well, so what I would like to do is we're at the top of the hour here. We normally take a little station break, a
Sure.
hard break, and it'll give you 6-7 minutes.
Oh, good.
I usually run a video. You can kind of walk around, get your circulation back.
Yeah,
And
sure.
when we come back, I'd like to go ahead and bring on some people for some Q&A, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Because I know I'm getting messages all through this. People are wanting to get on and ask questions, and
yeah, sure.
So we'll do that, and give people an opportunity.
Perfect.
All right. So what I'm going to do here is it'll just put you on hold, and I'll just bring you back on here in just a few minutes.
Great.
And we will continue the conversation from there.
Wonderful.
All right, Alfred Webre. We'll be back with you here in just a moment. All right. And I'm going to bring in some of the people that wanted to get in here into the call.
Yeah. Could I just add something first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There was some issues that came up during the break, and there was there's a faction within the. Let's see if I can get I'm just trying to find oh, here we go. There's a group or some people within the chat that say that we're lying about the decapitation and about the guillotines being in Obamacare. And so I had left out unintentionally that article in the list of articles that I just passed to you. Right. And so during the break, I put it back in the list, and I'm just putting it in your chat right now. It's called The Elite Decapitation and Obamacare. And so that's an article that should be added there. And that goes into the specific issue of decapitation, Obamacare, how they make money off of decapitation, and why the installation of guillotines on the cars that go to the FEMA camps have been chosen as a specific technology.
Right. And that's a creepy thing, guillotines, I'm telling you. I mean, that's just, I've been telling people what's happening over in the Middle East with ISIS and, the killing of Christians, and, they're wanting to bring that here. I mean, even if somebody out there is not buying into what you're talking about with some of these things, Alfred, I mean, we all agree that there is evil out there in the world, and, those guys have threatened to come here, and I know Dr. Jim Garrow was on here recently and was talking about he got some intelligence, a very stern warning that they're planning on attacking 100 shopping malls here in America in the not too distant future in a coordinated attack. And they've come through that southern border, because it's porous.
And also, it's all fronts of the same beast. I mean, ISIS is a project of the New World Order.
Right.
In the same way that Al-Qaeda was a project of the CIA, or is a project of the CIA.
Well, Al-Qaeda, I know when we had Zach, the guy that's chairman of the Association of former Border Patrol Agents, he was on here, and Zach Taylor. Yeah, Zach Taylor, and he was telling us that the that what's going on in Texas to him has all the hallmarks of being a CIA operation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
Right.
that the southern border of the U.S. has been intentionally shredded
Right. And he
by
called
the
it
CIA.
an invasion, a planned
Yeah,
invasion.
yeah,
You know.
and it is also a false flag. Uh, Many of those invaders, quote unquote, those children or youngsters or gang members, all of them that are coming in, uh, as easily could be vectors, in other words, carriers of diseases. They also undermine law and order. They also uh, uh, could be a part of an quote ISIS-like false flag. So this is a complete setup, and the targets are the U.S. genuine souls. It's that this is a battle at the soul level that's being fought at the level of the soul, and
Yeah.
they and the various mind controlled bodies with people whose souls have checked out or they're compromised or who have lost their ethics and are either in service to self or in service to various aspects of the darkness are being manipulated as part of the end game here. So what we have to do is just call it continuously, expose them, and keep on doing it relentlessly.
Right.
Boy, I agree with that, Alfred. This is Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy.
So what I want to do right quick is put it out there that if anybody would like to now be on and ask some questions, you can add us to your Skype. If you're already on Skype, obviously, you just can let me know by chatting a little note you'd like to be added to the call, or just call the show and we'll add you in. If you aren't on our Skype, you can add American Liberty Live to your Skype contacts, and that also comes up under Jeffrey.Sisk, JEFFREY.SISK, and both of those will pull up our Skype account, and then we will add you. And then you've also got the option, if you like, of calling in. You can call in on 352-201-5080. So go ahead, Kathy.
I was wondering, Alfred, could you give me, in the simplest form, an explanation of a false flag? The word false flag.
Yeah, and I realize that that's a very technical term.
Yeah.
But it's the basic methodology by which wars get started now. Because what we call aggressive war is become unlawful, illegal, and bad PR to just nakedly attack another country. And ever since the end of World War II, with the Nuremberg trials, it's the worst war crime if you just go out and invade another country. So countries who
Hey, Adam,
there's all kinds of feedback going on.
Adam, you got to cut your speakers down. You're bleeding over the air, buddy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People can just mute their Skype.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Just put your Skype on mute.
Right.
And so there are a couple of things to note. First of all, war is an industrial activity. It's like making shoes or growing oranges or making airplanes. And war is the basic activity of the permanent war economy. And the basic methodology of making money off of war is you control both sides of the war. You control both enemies. You control both of them, and you make money off of both of them. You sell arms to both, uniforms to both. So you supply both of them. You lend money to both of them. you make money on the destruction, on picking up the dead, and then you make money on the rebuilding. And that's how the permanent war economy works. And it's made by just a handful, a very small percentage of people who own the bloodline banks and own politics and own government. And there are all sorts of dimensional things that go along with it, because believe it or not, human fear and suffering are a quantifiable dimension, a quantifiable product, and they sell it to dimensional entities. There are negative dimensional entities, both negative spiritual and negative extraterrestrial, like reptilians, and that's what they feed off. Okay, so that's just the background on war.
I know they make a ton of money off of fear.
Yeah, yeah.
They sure do. Yeah.
So all war is artificial. All wars are artificial and manufactured. So that's the basic, the basic truth about wars. And that's kind of your starting point. Now let's get more deeply into your question, which was ...
Which was explain the false flag in a way that's simply understood.
Yeah. So a lot of this, the whole technology is hoodwinking the public, because you can't let the public know that it's all manufactured, because you have to mobilize the public, and either through fear or appeal to patriotism or bloodletting or blood sport, get the public involved and get them to pay for the war or to send their sons and daughters to the war. And you do that by creating a pretext. And the simplest methodology is, oh, somebody just attacked me, or we were just attacked by somebody else, therefore we've got to go to war. And what you do is you create an incident that is some other force that's operating under, quote, a false flag. So you create a military force that, let's say, if you're the Costa Ricans, you create, no, Costa Rica is a bad example. If you're somewhere, if you're in Israel and you want to attack the Gazans, you create a military force in which you dress a bunch of people like Palestinians, who then come over and do an action in Israel, but they're really Israelis. Or you do what the Israeli did. They created a whole entity called Hamas. Okay? So Hamas is their what's called controlled opposition. And on demand, they just start lobbing rockets into Israel that really don't do that much harm. And then Israel can respond with greatly disproportionate force. They can destroy, these are the actual statistics, 250,000, 250,000 people in Gaza don't have homes now, because what Israel wants is the Gaza gas reserves. So they're trying to drive everybody out of Gaza. So that's a false flag. It's a phony excuse. Hitler used it. The United States uses it. The battleship Maine was blown up in Havana Harbor. Therefore, the Spanish-American War took place, where the U.S. gained, could invade Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines, and the U.S. gained territories. Well, the Cubans weren't too happy, so they fought off the Americans, and the Americans weren't able to annex Cuba, but the Puerto Rico thought it was a good deal, so now you have the territory of Puerto Rico. And the Philippines have been pretty unhappy about it, so the U.S. couldn't annex Puerto Rico, but the U.S. got a bunch of other Spanish territories. And it was all when the battleship Maine blew up, And guess who blew up the battleship Maine in Havana Harbor?
That's what I wanted to hear, was the simpler explanation, because a lot of times I
The
think what's happening.
Americans. The Americans. Now, let's fast forward to September 11th, 2001. All of a sudden, these so-called planes fly into the World Trade Center, or it looks like it, and we won't get into technicalities. Oh, it looks like they came from caves in Afghanistan. Oh, it looks like they even flew into the Pentagon. You investigate a little bit, and who planned this whole thing? Answer: for 30 years, in a project led by Donald H. Rumsfeld, starting in 1971, where he would end up as Secretary of Defense in September 11th, 2001. There was an inside job where the U.S. government attacked itself in the Pentagon and attacked the World Trade Center, so that then they would have a pretext to launch a global war of aggression and a domestic war of oppression, and install a world dictatorship to make America Big Brother.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're clear as a bell.
Are you hearing me, Alfred?
Totally.
Okay, because I was talking before and nobody was hearing me. I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. I think it might be my Skype cutting in and out. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
you're fine.
You haven't cut out on us, since you've been talking. You've been clear as a bell.
I've been going where I don't hear you sometimes and I don't hear Alfred sometimes, and I don't know. Anyway, that was a very good, simple explanation, because I believe what people hear, and what I did for a while, was hear the word false flag and say, well, if it's a false flag, then what's all that damage?
Well, no, false flag doesn't mean that damage that doesn't occur. It means that you created a phony attack. You created an attack by someone you want to invade, apparently.
Right.
But it's not a force from that someone that you want. It's a force that you've dressed up like whoever you want to invade.
Yeah. Well, I see there's two others here with questions, so I'm going to let them go for it.
Yeah.
Right. So the first one that popped in here is Mr. Wilson. So, Mr. Wilson, you have a question for our guests?
Yeah, I guess it's a question. It's probably a hard question to come up with an answer for, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
All right, go ahead.
In your opinion, how long do you think this is going to be taking place, and when is it going to actually come to a head, I should say?
Yeah.
In your opinion.
That's a very good question. And I don't think that anybody has an answer to that, because you have two opposing, or many opposing factions. You have the anti-constitutional faction, the Matrix Illuminati faction that's trying to exterminate this large portion of the human race. And then you have a large portion of the human race and their helpers, who are trying to prevent that. So it's not a given. I mean, this is a struggle that's going on. And what's more, we're now getting to a phase of what they call white hats. For example, last week we taped an interview which is going to be aired tomorrow, Tuesday, August 19th at 6 p.m. on awakenthedreamradio.com, with a genuine white hat, and that is a captain in the U.S. Marine Corps who has been lawfully authorized under Marine Corps regulations, authorized by his chain of command and brigadier general under orders to go publicly, to go out public. And this is standing military, secret military regulations of the U.S. Marines that click into place when less than 50% of the constitutional guarantees in the U.S. are functional. Then the U.S. Marine Command can begin to go public to say that this is the case, can begin to take action against what they consider to be traitors who are trying to bring down the constitutional order of the U.S., namely people who are in the civil order now or otherwise trying to bring down the U.S., part of the New World Order. So I found this very heartening because although this might turn the U.S. into what the Ukraine is now, where you have all kinds of factions going, at least we have a fighting chance. We have tanks on our side now that might be even more than their tanks. So if the Ferguson DHS infiltrators, start acting up, well, we can go with the white hats and whoop them. And well, that happened during the Civil War, that happened during the Revolutionary War, but that's how we preserve the nation. So if those scenarios have to happen, well, let them happen as long as they're under the color of proper constitutional law. And some of the estimates that I've heard, we're now at August 18th, 2014, and that is that the polarization of opinion, we're in highly polarized opinion now. The maximum of the polarized opinion will be around the end of 2015. By 2017, we're going to have a transformation of consciousness where people, the dualistic consciousness, which is I win, you lose. And that's the consciousness under which the New World Order can really operate. Hyper-capitalism, fascism. It's basically I win, you lose, versus unity consciousness, which is we are one. That by 2017, there's a general transformation of consciousness where people start moving out of duality consciousness into more of a unity consciousness. So these wars and these fascistic plans can't gain any traction, and that by 2020 or 2025, we are essentially going to be able, if we gain critical mass, to land paradise on Earth. Now, that's the optimal rosy scenario, but that's a possibility. It all depends which way the critical mass goes.
All right, so does that answer what you were seeking there, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, and then some. I appreciate your time, sir.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, so Adam, do you have a question for our guest?
Yeah, about Tolik. He does play a role in our future, right?
Sorry, I missed that word.
Tolek.
Yeah.
T-O-L-E-C.
Oh, Tolek?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know Tolek very well. I was one of the interviewers who had the fortune of helping bring Tolek to public prominence. And I followed Tolek, and people can go to exopolitics.com, and if you go to the right-hand menu, you'll see a link that says Galactic Governance, and you click on that, and then you'll see another link that says Andromeda Council, and you click on that, and then there are all the interviews and articles that are interviews with Tolek as a representative of the Andromeda Council. Now, this gets into a lot of very very advanced, or some people would say borderline, phenomenology in what I like to call the omniverse. The omniverse is the totality of all of the universes that we call, all of the dimensions of the universes that we call the multiverse, plus the spiritual dimensions and God, the intelligent civilization of souls. In other words, all that is the dimensional ecology of the omniverse. And Tolek is dealing with he's really an interdimensional contactee, because he's dealing with interdimensional entities. And advanced extraterrestrial entities can present themselves as interdimensional entities because they are advanced upper dimensional entities. In other words, we are extraterrestrial entities that are resident on a planet, Terra, Earth, in the third dimension of time-space. And say the Andromedans that he deals with from the Andromeda Galaxy or wherever can be in the third, fourth, sixth dimension. So it's interdimensional. And so there's a lot of transformation of communication that can take place in interdimensional communication. In other words, communication that's from the fifth dimension may have a different meaning once it reaches the third dimension. So initially, for example, his contacts, and this was part of the initial interviews that we had with Tolek, told him, oh, come January 1st, 2014, we're all going to be in the fourth dimension. We're all going to be 10 feet tall. We're all going to look like we're 35 years old. You know, it's going to be a completely different reality. Now, there's some truth to that, in that we're not all in the third dimension here. In other words, the third density. There's a great spectrum here. Some people may be in density 3.1, density 3.3, density 3.8, depending on our level of consciousness and evolution. Some of us may be in this density, but verging into lower fourth density and more outside of time, depending on our personal evolution. So that there's a great collection in this Earth density of people along a wide range of individual densities of consciousness. And so what his contacts were telling Tolek was, in a way, was true, but it wasn't literally true. So that's why, in my opinion, one has to interpret what the communications to Tolek are. Now, Tolek and I maintain an open friendship and communication on this. We're going to be on a radio program, a panel program next month with some very eminent other exopolitical spokespersons in talking about the issue of when extraterrestrial contact and landing is going to happen. which raises some of these issues. Well, extraterrestrial contact has already happened if you define extraterrestrial contact in a certain way. So in this interdimensional area, things are very relative, and you have to define them very relatively. That's my finding, and that's the message that I try to get across. I hope that this answer was useful.
All right, and did that answer your question, Adam?
Oh, yeah. I'm very aware of it.
All right, do you have any follow-up for that?
I just want to introduce him to the other people.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, Adam. Try again.
Oh, I was really very familiar with Tolik, but I just wanted to bring him out to the rest of the viewers.
Yeah. Tolik maintains that he and I are from the same planetary system, and all of that. So I know how he is as a person, and many people have claimed me as being from their planetary system. So I don't know.
I think we all came from God, Alfred. Anyway, can we go back? I want to find out about this in Liberia. They said yesterday that they broke into the place where they were quarantining the people with Ebola, and they wrecked that whole place. And then everybody that was in there ran in many different directions. Do you think those people in there know that they're not sick?
Well, yeah. Let's kind of back up a second. First of all, the Ebola virus exists, and it's especially targeted at West Africans. And with the health profile of West Africans and their extremely poor nutrition, their extremely poor set of health, their sanitary conditions, it can be deadly. It's very different from Ebola in North America, number one. Number two, Ebola is a bioweapon. It's not a naturally occurring virus.
Okay.
It was developed as a bioweapon specifically targeting West Africa that would then start pandemics in these targeted West African countries, false flag pandemics that then could be scenarioed over into the U.S. and then further scenarioed by FEMA and the WHO that are fascistic New World Order agencies into scenarios that require the regulations of mass inoculation, martial law, mass FEMA camps, and then mass genocide. It's all a fake scenario to get people to be gassed. If you look at the test scenarios that they did in World War II, they took the gas chambers, and what was written on front was Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free. So they thought that they were going there to work. It was a work camp. And then they sent it to the showers and they gassed them. Okay? So here it's the exact same false flag. The laboratories, which are funded by Bill Gates, Soros, in conjunction with Tulane University in conjunction with the U.S. Army. It's all connected with the Fort Detrick, the development of the AIDS pandemic, the development of the SARS pandemic, the development of all the vaccines around this, which is the vehicle by which these viruses are delivered. Then these are nested in West African scenarios where they are specifically designed to be harmful. And as a bioweapon, they're attacked in bioweapons there. And, sort of in a military fashion, with everything set up to try and create these panics. And if they really get one going, then they can float it and float it over to France, float it over to the US, so they can get their whole FEMA camp and extermination apparatus going here, which is the analogy to the extermination camps that they built in Germany, which was the test in World War II. This is a long-term scenario. This has been planned for 200-300 years at least, if not for thousands of years, by an elite that has been in power for thousands of years, and that plan these things all along, and that look at humanity as vermin.
Okay, now because I'm going back to where they were bringing in all of the people from over the border in Texas and down in that area.
Yeah.
And then there's the diseases that they were naming that those people had. I've probably had all of them except one, TB. And I'm here, and these are normal diseases for the Central American countries. Dengue fever is a normal disease, and lice is a normal thing in those countries. So, and the diseases that come from the lice, but they're all curable. These are all diseases that you can, but they use those diseases to ton of fear about these people that are coming in. Not that I want them in here. I don't. I think they should all go home. But again, it's the fear thing.
But yeah, it's fear, and you're assuming that it's situation normal. It's not situation normal. You have a force that's above the law, namely the intelligence agencies, are dismantling the border apparatus and dismantling the respect for law. And then you have these individuals coming in that are then not subject to law. They are here illegally, and the law enforcement has been called off. And we don't know what those individuals are tracking, or what they have with them, or how they can be used in future scenarios. This is all based on disinformation. They can have an Ebola scenario whereby they'll suddenly say, oh, 30,000 of them were carrying a latent form of Ebola, and now we've got to go out and find them. We don't know, because the press, the mainstream media, will print outrageous lies, and Americans will believe it.
Exactly.
Unless the Americans are inoculated by the information that we are bringing out, showing that it's complete fraud. And they've tried all these vaccination scare scenarios, starting with AIDS, going on with SARS, and now going on with Ebola.
Yeah, I agree. And I just watched how the fear is just spreading and spreading and spreading.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It operates on fear, and now you've had the Bush presidency, you've had two Bush presidencies, the Clinton presidency and the Obama presidency, all of whom have signed themselves over to this elimination, depopulation, extermination agenda. Okay, no matter what their PR politics say, and who have signed vital pieces of these executive orders, so that now they have the executive orders to put this in play whenever they're told that they have, oh, well, we're ready now. We can get the storm in West Africa going at any point. But still now, their false flags in North America aren't quite getting going because they can't get Ferguson off the ground. You know, because now it's people are putting on the internet that their DHS personnel are infiltrating the Black Panthers and are the ones who are agent provocateurs who are trying to get martial law going, because there's still a core of citizens who are awake and who are using the internet and using word of mouth to tell the other citizens that this is still awake. There's still a core of patriots who are not willing to allow the United States as a nation to go down.
Yeah, and that's what we plan to do here. We're not willing to let this go down. And I believe that every bit of truth that we find out there, we have to bring it out. And in bringing it out over the last 5 years that I've been doing radio, we've chased them and stopped their plans many times. Yes. Just by exposing what they were going to do.
Yes.
Because they really wanted to take us over in 2000.
Yes.
But because of the internet and the people on the internet, we just keep delaying them because we expose the truth.
Yeah.
And people don't like to hear the truth. They don't want to hear it. But you have to hear it for them to stop their mess.
Yes. And
so it's like, yeah. I was explaining to Jeff one day, there are those of us that came out on the front line in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And now we're going to another level of people. In comes Jeff, and he's going to try to unite everybody. First, you try to get the truth out. Now let's try to unite them. And that's a little harder said than done. We're finding out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, there's certain basic principles that I think you can get a broad set of people behind. And that was brought home to me when I spoke to this U.S. Marine Corps captain who had been delegated by his command to go public under secret Marine Corps law that says wherever there's a finding that 50% of the constitutional guarantees of the United States are not being met, the military command can delegate people to go public to make that announcement and to prosecute and go after and identify patriots, people in public life who are attempting to bring the constitutional order down, or who are working to bring the constitutional order down. So that means we are at a stage now in U.S. public life where the military is under lawful order, lawful constitutional order, is now acting to bring down government officials and others who are acting to try to end the constitutional order of the United States. And so that listen up, everybody, get it right. Even the U.S. Marine Corps has recognized that the U.S. corporation, and levels in the national, at the national or the state or local level of the police, of legislatures, of government bureaucrats may be working on the New World Order side, Well, the U.S. Marine Corps has landed. The White Hats have landed, and they're operating under proper military authority, constitutional authority, with a proper determination that more than 50% of the constitutional guarantees of the United States are now not operating. So that is objectively the situation in which the United States finds itself. And thank God that the U.S. Marine Corps has now made this finding, and that now they have officers such as this officer, U.S. Marine Corps captain, that has acted as such. Our radio panel will air tomorrow, Tuesday, August 19th at 6 p.m. Pacific on awakeinthedreamradio.com.
Well, I'm going to have to listen to that. Now, is this got anything to do with Captain May?
Captain K?
May, M-A-Y. Eric May?
Well, it may or may not. I'm not sure whether Captain May is operating under constitutional orders of his chain of command. This captain is operating under constitutional orders of his chain of command, who told him, you are now going to go out in public and you are going to announce that your chain of command, which goes up to a brigadier general, is doing this.
Okay. And so could you pop that link for us down here so that if anybody wants to listen to that tomorrow night, they can?
Let me just, I've just got to get it, I think organized.
And then I think Jeff is ready. We're up at the 10 o'clock range already.
Yeah,
here
it's
we
11
go.
o'clock.
www.awakeinthedreamradio.com, and that'll be at 6 p.m. PST, August 19th.
Well, that gives me hope to see that our military has now a foothold.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's what gave the Congress hope, if they were working hand in hand with the Congress, that the Congress now chose to sue Obama. I wonder if this is all part and parcel.
I am sure that there are white hats that are working with the Congress, i.e., there's been a determination, according to secret U.S. Marine Corps law, and there's been a determination within the Marine Corps that 50% of the U.S. constitutional guarantees are not working, and that therefore they are operating under a specific condition, and now they have designated officers to go public, and they are working secretly to restore the republic.
Well, praise God. Maybe it won't be so far-fetched to get united yet, Jeff.
There you go. There you go. I tell you, it'd be nice to get that pure republic back.
Yes, it will.
So,
yep.
Well, Alfred, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate you spending 2 hours with us. I know it's a long time, and just appreciate you coming on and talking to the folks.
Thank you very much.
All right, and we will pass these links along to everybody, and that way they can catch your show tomorrow night and read some of those articles that you were talking about.
Great.
And you know, we'll continue that story and see where that goes. You know.
Wonderful.
All right, so Alfred Webre, thanks for being on, and we're going to take a short station break. And I'm Jeffrey Sisk, and you are watching American Liberty Live, and we will be back here after a short break.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
You, Alfred.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.